We've said it before and we will say it again. When the going gets weird, the weird turn pro. The thing is, surprisingly, throughout the confines of this list series, we've managed to highlight some of the most remarkable horror movies that just don't fit into any other category. And much like the man who penned those legendary words, Hunter S. Thompson, he too didn't fit into any other category. The point is, this is part 6, guys, and if you can't tell by now, being weird in horror cinema is a fine art to deliver, and yet still there are many more where that came from. So in that case, let's take a look. Hello horror fans, what's going on, and once again welcome back to the Scariest channel on YouTube, Top 5 Scary Videos. As per usual, I'll be your horror host Jack Finch. Today we curiously take a look at the top 5 weirdest horror movies of all time, part 6. Whew, roll the clip. For the curious amongst you, that clip of course from 2016's The Greasy Strangler, a movie that just so happened to feature in part 5 of this series, and a movie that will certainly take your breath away with just how damn weird it is. Really, that scene could probably sum up how much sense The Greasy Strangler makes, and yet it's entirely brilliant. So yeah, consider this a reminder that if you came for weird, The Greasy Strangler is the weird that you're gonna get. But thankfully for us, there's a little more where that came from, so let's get on with the show. Kicking off at number 5, The Dark Backwoods, 1991.
Wait a second! You guys want to see something really neat?
I'd like to begin this segment by saying that Bill Paxton was a remarkable actor. He is missed entirely. He was the best kind of oddball, and he had the right balance of roguish charm for us to believe all of it. And whilst throughout his career he played some pretty iconic roles, as well as featuring in some pretty off-the-wall horror movies like Weird Science and Near Dark, perhaps one of his most bizarre career choices and lesser known roles was with this thing, 1991's The Dark Backwoods, a strange offshoot from the plastic fantastic of the late 1980s that was flung out of the bowels of bizarreness and clung to the wall of horror cinema like a green, dark, sludgy mess of a movie. That's exactly what this is, and if you're looking for weirdness, please look no further than this short stop trash round of a movie. Written and directed by Adam Rifkin, who, as a side note, was the mind behind 1997's Mouse Hunt, which, may I add, was one of the greatest movies of the 90s. The Dark Backwoods stars Judd Nelson as Marty Malt and his best friend Gus, played by the one and only Bill Paxton. You see, Marty Malt is an unhappy garbage man who often moonlights as an atrociously bad stand-up comic and dreams of building up his career in the world of being funny. The thing is though, he's terrible, and his lack of comedy is reflected in the dark, grimy, garbage-strewn netherworld that he lives in. The only person that believes in him is his best friend Gus, played by Paxton, who is the only one to laugh at his jokes, and yet his sincerity is questionable. However, just as things seem hopeless enough for Marty, a strange lump starts growing out of his back, and then suddenly it gets bigger and bigger, and a bizarre opportunity comes his way. Listen, this movie won't be for everyone, but much like with 2016's The Greasy Strangler, there isn't a lot to be left to the imagination here. It's crass, it's gross, it's full of more weirdness than a Wellington boot filled with fermented black garlic, and Bill Paxton is absolutely brilliant in it. The Dark Backwoods, give it a try, and don't say I didn't warn you. Swinging in at number 4, Taxidermy Ax, 2006. Truth be told, I've wanted to cover this movie for quite some time, and whilst I was leaving it out of the weird list for now in the hope that a more niche list would potentially come our way, just like a Hungarian champion speed eater, I'm done with the waiting. People need to see this absolute enigma of a movie. The thing is though, if you're looking for straight up horror, then you'll find yourself lacking here. Taxidermy is horrifying, it really is, but it's horrifying in a completely unique capacity. This movie makes me feel weird, man. In fact, I feel weird just talking about it. The horror behind this movie is both psychological and physical, but it is subtle. It relies on the ambiguity of the narrative to deliver its horror, and yet whilst that may take some patience from the audience, it's certainly worth it. Visually speaking, this is one of the most bizarre movies that I've ever seen. It's one of the best examples of body horror in modern cinema, actually. Written and directed by Hungarian filmmaker György Palfi, Taxidermy Ax was created with the intention of being a metaphorical, socio-political retelling of Hungary's history from the Second World World War up until modern times. The story itself is told by means of 3 generations of Hungarian men, passed down from father to son. It begins with a military orderly during the Second World War, a lieutenant who is posted to a remote Hungarian military outpost and lives a wretched sort of existence. Then his son, an aspiring speed eater who rose to fame during the height of the Cold War and becomes a grotesque and engorged man who can't help but consume everything around him, both physically and mentally. And then finally it concludes with his son, a pale and skinny taxidermist who is nothing like his father. One of the tamest scenes in this movie features a cage filled with cats hungry for human flesh. Yeah, exactly. And the finale to this movie is equal parts utterly horrific and breathtaking. You will be affected by Taxidermy Ax. I promise you that. Next up at number 3, Wes Craven's New Nightmare, 1994.
Miss me?
Alright, for the halfway point on this list, we're going to be doing things a little differently. You see, here, when we talk about weird, we actually mean it in the sense that sometimes to do things right in horror cinema, you have to do things differently. You see, Wes Craven's New Nightmare is one of the strangest films that he ever created, and yet it features one of his most iconic characters and one of the most legendary villains of horror cinema ever to slash their way onto the silver screen. Of course, the one and only Freddy Krueger. You see, whilst Nightmare on Elm Street is certainly an iconic horror franchise, by the 5th or 6th movie, things got a little tiresome, to say the least. And by tiresome, what we really mean is hot trash. This movie though, it saved the entire franchise, and it took a particularly risky move that would have certainly felt weird for long-time fans. It made Freddy Krueger real. You see, written under the working title A Nightmare on Elm Street 7, The Ascension, during production, Wes Craven kept his cards close to his chest. To shake the tiresome franchise up a bit, he set out to deliberately make a more cerebral film than any of the recent entries, which at the time Craven regarded as far too cartoonish for his own liking and considered them a set of films that have strayed far from his original theme. Compared to any other of the Nightmare movies, this one is far, far darker and far, far less comical. There is nothing funny about this movie, in fact. It's pretty damn horrifying, actually. Craven set about to do away with the plastic fantastic premise of Freddy Krueger and instead asked the question, what happens when these horror films are brought to real life? Really, if you haven't seen Wes Craven's New Nightmare and have ever wondered how Robert Englund's slasher would fare in the real world, give this weird little sore thumb of a horror gem a look-see, because it truly is brilliant. Coming in at number 2, The Boxes Omen, 1983. Okay, alright then, where do we even begin with this particular enigma of a horror show? Now I don't say this lightly, but 1983's The Boxes Omen may very well be one of the greatest examples of practical effects in the whole of 80s horror cinema. Truly, it is a shining example of every weird theme that you could ever imagine, crammed into what is actually a surprisingly compelling narrative, and it features more black magic, voodoo style, zombie demon explosive weirdness than you could ever hope to cram into a single movie. So why haven't we heard of it? You'd be pretty perplexed to discover this isn't a horror movie per se, but instead it's a movie about a Hong Kong kickboxer. Yeah, exactly. Bear with me a moment. Originally titled as Mo, 1983's The Boxes Omen was written by Setso On and directed by Kyu Shu Hung, and it is just as much a kung fu movie as it is a bizarre horror show. And through that bizarre combination, it manages to deliver the gore and the shocks in spades. After a Hong Kong kickboxer is paralyzed by a cheating Thai competitor, his brother Hung vows revenge, and so he journeys to Thailand for a duel for his honor. However, once he arrives, he quickly gets sidetracked by a quest of fate to save the soul of a deceased Buddhist monk who just so happens to be Hung's twin brother in a past life, who tragically died at the hands of a powerful black magician. To cut a long story short, Hung must instead become a Taoist monk so that he can defeat the evil wizard and break the poisonous spell that has befallen his intertwined lives. This film is weird magic meets mystical kung fu, and the result is an absolutely astounding visual extravaganza. We're talking boatloads of maggots, we're talking ancient arcane rites and cryptic curses, we're talking eel vomiting, flying disembodied heads, crucified bats, armies of snapping decomposed crocodile skulls, swarms of ocular spiders. The end result of this movie is good versus evil, and it's wrapped up in one of the most mind-bending visual onslaughts that you may ever see. Really, The Boxes Omen needs to be experienced to be believed. It's something else, really is, and it's on YouTube. Give it a watch. And finally, coming in at the 4th spot, Spider Baby, 1968.
Beware, there's a full moon tonight.
Big fat bug right in my spiderweb.
Of course, a movie that has been a long time coming over here at Top 5 Scary Videos, and another movie that has since cemented itself as one of the most bizarre examples of cult horror and a shining earmarked flagpost of what it means to be weird in horror cinema. Really, Spider Baby deserves its own category. It is a movie like no other, and yet surprisingly, considering the themes that it manages to cram into its 80-minute runtime, this movie has so much strange charm to it that will leave you questioning just exactly what side of the line you would fall upon. Written and directed by the legend of exploitation cinema Jack Hill, Spider Baby stars some of the most prolific horror oddballs to have ever graced the silver screen. The legendary Lon Chaney Jr., the late great Sid Haig, Jill Banner and Beverly Washburn. You see, although it was released to relative obscurity, Spider Baby is perhaps the greatest demonstration of what cult horror can deliver. It tells a tale of three peculiar children of the mysterious Merrier family who live in their family's decaying ancestral mansion alongside their loyal and loving protector, Bruno, played by Lon Chaney Jr. in one of his most remarkable roles. You see, the children, as well as the entire ancestral family, suffer from a rare genetic syndrome, an affliction that is unique only to the members of their family, which causes them to mentally, socially, and physically regress down the evolutionary ladder, beginning in their late childhood. Despite this horrendous curse, Bruno has tried his utmost to keep the family secret hidden from the rest of the world, yet unfortunately for them, two distant relatives have recently taken interest in their supposed inheritance. At the beginning of the movie, after arriving with their lawyers, they begin to examine the property and stake their claim as the rightful heirs of the estate, yet they have no idea what remains lurking in this dark and dusty house. Honestly, I'll say no more because Spider Baby is a film like no other. In some senses, it's hilarious, in others, it's the most disturbing story ever told. It's weird, but in all the right ways. Well, there we have it, horror fans, our list for the top 5 weirdest horror movies of all time, part 6. What do you guys think? Do you agree, disagree, have any more to add to this list? Then let us know your thoughts down in the comment section below, as well as any choice picks of your own. Before we depart from today's video though, let's first take a quick look at some of your more creative comments from over the past few days. First up, Billy Valasha says, why does he always say, as always, I'm your host? You're not always the host, Jack. Egotistical much? Okay, good point, but I'm always the host in the videos that I host. See what I mean? And finally, Alan Carr Faulkner says, insert cliche comment here, this a cliche in itself. Now I demand my comment to be read, if not. Well played, sir. Well played. Also, Alan Carr Faulkner, great name. Thanks, buddy. Well, on that note, unfortunately, that's all we've got time for in today's video. Just sticking around all the way until the end. As always, I've been your horror host, Jack Finch. You've been watching Top 5 Scary Videos, and until next time, you take it easy.